Hello, this is Dr. Flight. Um, Thank you for spending a little time looking at this video and listening to it. So what we'll do is spend a little bit of time talking about product mix and product line strategies, and specifically what we want to introduce here is the idea of a product array where firms have a series of products across different product categories, and then depths of products where within a product category, a firm will have multiple products that would go deep into a product, a market segment niche, or a specific product area. Okay, so this is going to then help clarify what marketing arrays are, product arrays are, and then what product mixes and line strategies are all about. Thanks. All right, let me know if you have any questions moving forward. Having our product strategy. Why do we need a product strategy? Well, a few reasons. First of all, product strategies help direct us in a way to go strategically for the firm. It talks about, like, if we create a product that's for a specific market, then that directs us towards that market, and it help us focus a direction for which to go. Product strategy also is used in an effort to meet our goals and objectives. So we use a product strategy to grow and to maintain sales and so forth. We also use product strategies defensively and offensively to compete against our direct competitors. Because we are creating a value proposition, and they are too, and what we do product-wise often is impacted by how we want to differentiate ourselves. And also, we create product strategies because markets evolve, and we have to add products, and we have to delete products, and we have to change products. And so as we look at market changes, we also simultaneously can look at product strategy changes as well. Again, here's an example of a product array. In a product array, what we want to do is we want to draw out in a chart form the different products that a company can offer. And so a lot of times we do this in a chart where we have the mix, the product mix is the horizontal form here. So the product mix goes across there, and the product line typically goes up and down. So we have a horizontal and a vertical component, but within here we typically try to describe, kind of the products that we have. And this is a good visual representation of maybe laying out what a company will offer. So the product mix then is the entire range of product lines, and it's typically represented by the horizontal dimension of the product array. So it may be that a company has multiple product categories or multiple brands that are associated with each product category, and each brand would have its own line of products. Also, keep in mind that as we design this, oftentimes each column within the chart represents a distinct operating unit within the company. So this would be a strategic business unit within a company. General Motors, for years and years and years and years, have used multiple strategic business units as independently operated forms of business. So there's the Corvette brand, which is a strategic business unit for GM. There's Chevy. There used to be Saturn. There used to be Oldsmobile. There used to be a whole bunch of others. There still are, of course, many as well. But each different brand, in this sense, is a strategic business unit. And we can arrange these arrays, these product mix charts, if you will, oftentimes by strategic business units. Federal Express has FedEx Air, FedEx Ground, FedEx City. FedEx, I don't know, they have different levels, right? Or different distribution methods. Each one could be its own form of the chart. Technologies, we could be a company that deals with creating memory devices. Well, there's CD drives, there's USB drives, there's internal hard drives, there's external hard drives. There are lots of different technologies that go into memory for a computer. And so a company could be designed and organized in a way that reflects that. Of course, we could also look at market as well. We could also look at product design too. Um, Caterpillar, typically they have three different product units or business units, if you will: engines, machines, and parts. They have three different pieces. Those three different pieces can behave independent of each other, although they're interrelated. They can certainly operate financially apart from each other if need be. So the product mix then is something that we want to think about from, again, a horizontal perspective. We often think about this from a width perspective, and then we think about how many different product lines might be associated with a particular company, and each one being one column in the chart that we're talking about. One other notion that we want to think about is, as we're creating these product array charts and we have columns of products, it's not uncommon for columns or strategic business units to share with each other resources. That's something we'll talk about a little bit more, especially when we look at product platforms. But here's an example with Toyota. We have the Toyota brand, and now Toyota can act by itself as its own business without worrying about Lexus. Lexus can be its own business, and Scion can be its own strategic business unit as well. Within each one of these brands, they have a series of products. These would be product lines, right? So Toyota introduced Lexus, as a competing, they compete with each other, but again, they're both trying to reach very different market segments. Same with Scion as well. If they were to add another brand somewhere off to the side here, they would be expanding their product mix and creating another strategic business unit by doing so. Keep also in mind that the technology that's used to create vehicles can also be shared across these mix areas. So if one company has a breakthrough in technology, or one unit, like Toyota has a breakthrough in technology, they could share that breakthrough with Lexus, and so both strategic business units could certainly benefit from that advance. They could also share product lines. They could share relationships with raw material providers, and so on. So synergy and shared resources is certainly something to consider when we look across product lines and mixes here. We can also think about, again, shared resources with product platforms as well. Here's another example: Textron's product strategy array here by brand. They have helicopters, they own Cessna, they have E-Z-GO carts, they have a lot of different brands they own, all associated with small engines or recreational vehicles or things along that line. So again, we've got all of these strategic business units that are all within the Textron family. Within this, so just under Cessna, they have the Citation sub-brand, the Caravan sub-brand, and then they have single engine products. So we can have brands within brands. We can have self-branded products for sure. So the Cessna Citation, and a Citation is a brand in and of itself. The Caravan, the Skyhawk or the Sky the sky notation here is something that is carried on as well. All right, so that's a bit about mixes. We can also think about product lines. So if the mix is associated with the horizontal features of the array, the product line is associated with the vertical features of the array. So what we're talking about here is depth and variety among product offerings within a specific strategic business unit or a specific market segment. So that's the key to think about. We've looked at Procter & Gamble in the past. Procter & Gamble has different products within beauty and grooming, health and well-being, and then household. Then within household, we have detergents, cleaners, diapers, and batteries. That's how they are organized. That's the organization of their company through strategic business units or such. And then within each one of these categories, we may have multiple brands as well. So we have Procter & Gamble, but we have these brands: Bold, Cascade, Cheer, Dash, Dawn, Deft, Era, Gain, and Tide. Those are all different detergents for either dishes or clothes. Keep in mind, we don't have anything named Procter & Gamble here. We don't have a Procter & Gamble Bold. We have Bold. But the depth here and then the different products that are offered within here suggests an allusion to the product line. Now, as we add and drop and we think about the different product line strategies we can have, there's going to be 5 or 6 here we think about. One is the full line product strategy. A full line product strategy is when a company has many, many different products within the same brand and category, such that a market is very well satisfied with lots of different product options. So a full line would be lots of different products being available to a specific market. A limited line would be one where we only offer a couple versions of our product. And this is important that we think about, like when we're first launching a product. If you're very first launching a product, we often only have like 1 or 2 versions of it until the product takes off and our volume increases and so forth. So the limited line is the opposite of a full line approach. This line stretch is when we add a product that's either more expensive and better performing, or less expensive and lesser performing. So earlier on when we were talking about Intel and we looked specifically at the Celeron product, that would be a downward stretch because that's a product that is less pricey, less performing than their other products, but it stretches their product line downward in terms of market that they're trying to reach. When they later on offered the Itanium processor, remember the Itanium was a very expensive processor and it was a very high performing one. That was an upward stretch that they engaged in when they did that. So we have upward and downward line stretches. We also have a filling out strategy. The filling out strategy is when we go from a limited line to a full line. So we have a few products in the offering mix, and then we fill out the product line and we create a full line by filling it out and adding products that our market would want. So here's a kind of a little illustration where we have different products offered by Toyota, ranging in performance level from low to high. And as one would imagine, as performance goes up, price goes up as well, because you'd expect to pay more for products that perform better. Now, this would appear to be a full line. There's a lot of different product offerings. If there were only a handful of product offerings, if they only offered like 2 or 3 or 4 cars, that would be a limited line. And then if over time they added products, that would be a filling in strategy, which would eventually yield the full line strategy that we have here. Here's another example with Anheuser-Busch. Again, we have product performance. This would be maybe quality or effectiveness of some type. And then we have price. So again, we have this upward relationship, which of course we would expect. Now, what they have done is they look for different specialty type products. The specialty type products would be using a filling in strategy to reach markets that aren't very well like niche markets that aren't very well satisfied with just a generic product. And so when we think about adding the products in a filling in strategy, what we're really doing is we're trying to reach lost customers or niche customers that we think we can that we think would be profitable for us. Another strategy or another concept here that's included, as I alluded to earlier, would be this idea of a product platform or platform planning. So sometimes when companies build a product, they want to be able to extend that product. And this is really kind of an extension or a filling in notion that when I build one product, I want to be able to interchange parts so that using the same basic framework, I can interchange parts and I can literally create hundreds of different products by only changing one or two pieces at a time. So that's what a product platform is really all about. You want to create a family of products that you can use the framework for over and over and over again. It's a very cost-effective way to create lots of new products. So the car industry does this. Certainly Black & Decker does this plenty of times when they have a motor. The same motor that goes into like 20 different products can be created, and they just slip it into each new product that they build, power tools and household devices and so forth. But the actual motor, though, within the device is probably the same across just about all of them. As an illustration, you can see this one deals with creating a recording device where you have different functions. So you have a recording system, then you have the disk drive, then you have an output, and then you have the power source. And then these four functions integrate with each other. So they have to go together. They have to be able to work together, and then they're laid out in a production sense. And the notion is, if I have another product that's not a recording device but does require a power source, then I could use the production that's done here and I can put it into this alternate product, so I can create scale of production. After I create, this second product, I'm like essentially doubling or tripling or whatnot the number of power source pieces I'm creating. And so again, it's the interconnectedness of these functions, if that's possible, and if I can create these functions so that they could be used across multiple products, then I've got a product platform, and that's a good thing. One last strategy, product line strategy, deals with deleting products. So it's certainly the case where sometimes you want to thin your product array, and so you drop products that are unprofitable or ones that you are taking too many of your resources or whatnot. So again, if you're going to go from a full line back down to a limited line, you delete products or you contract. So that would be one more strategy to think about as we're looking at product lines. Other concepts that we think about deal with complementary and cannibalistic types of products. So when we look at complementary products, we're looking at products that are typically sold together. So sometimes we'll see this within a product line where we have two products that would naturally be sold together. That makes sense that we do that. Other times we look to delete a product, and when we look to delete a product, we're looking to replace it with something. So we might purposefully cannibalize a product with a new one that we're launching, or we may do this by accident, or we may do it strategically when two market segments overlap each other a little bit. That sometimes causes a cannibalization issue. So with product line complements, we have here an example where we have Downy. We have Downy Ultra, which is a fabric softener, a liquid fabric softener, but then we have the Downy Ball, which you can purchase, which you would pour the Ultra Downy in. So we have a product that uses the other, and so you would naturally buy these two things together, and that would make sense. You could also go across product categories here as well. You could buy the detergent, which is Tide, but then you could buy the fabric softener, which is Ultra Downy. So we have two different strategic business units in the sense that we have two different brands, but they're sharing sales with each other. So sales for these two products would be positively correlated. If you were to look at when these products are purchased, you'll see a positive correlation between these two things. It might not be a super strong correlation, but they'll be positively correlated. Alternatively, if you have a Cannibal, here we have Era and we have Tide. Again, these are two detergents owned by Procter & Gamble, by the way, but they compete with each other in the sense that you have Era. This is the high capacity type of washer. And then we have Tide, and a person's typically not going to buy both. They're going to buy one or the other. Now, it's assumed that the Era market segment is different from the Tide market segment, that the typical Era buyer, if we looked at their customer profile, it would be different than the typical Tide buyer or their customer profile. Where we come into problems is when there's too much overlap or they're too closely associated with each other. So if the Tide buyer and the Era buyer are oftentimes the same person, then you have cannibalization issues, and that's where we have problems that happen. So that's one way to think about that. And again, when we're dealing with cannibalization, we look at the purchase of these two, and they'd be negatively correlated if we looked at that. I mean, or not even correlated in that sense, because when you purchase one, you don't purchase the other. So that would be a little awkward to be able to figure out. The very last thing that I want to mention here deals with this idea of building complements together. And it's really a last product strategy that we can look at that's just simply bundling, a bundling strategy where we take generally complementary products and put them together so that the customer buys two products at one time. You can charge a price premium for a bundling, or you can do it in a promotional activity as well. Remember, when we do a promotional activity, we're losing margin because we're giving product away basically, but we should also be realizing increased sales. So those increased sales, depending on the elasticity of the product, may overcome or overcompensate for a lost margin. But generally what we want to do is put two products that go together because it makes added value for the customer. It makes it easier for them to purchase because they spend less time shopping, and it introduces a product to them that they might not otherwise see. So it's a benefit from a new product launch type perspective. It also, though, increases sales for the product that you're adding. So if you have one product that sells well, if you have a second product that doesn't sell so well, by bundling it, this boosts sales for that product that you have less volume for. Finally, when we do this, one of the other attractive notions is that you have two different products. Each product typically has a different margin associated with it. So when we put the two products together, we actually average their margin together as well. So that's another perspective when we think about the strategy behind bundling products. You might pair a low margin product with a high margin product, and that would make sense. So at McDonald's, you buy a meal which consists of a burger, a Coke, and French fries. The Coke has extremely high margin associated with it, extremely high margin. The burger has much less margin associated with it, and the French fries are a good high margin product, but somewhere in between. So what you end up doing is you're selling one meal, but you're averaging three different margins together to be able to make that meal work. So if you have somebody buy only hamburgers, then you might not make as much money as if they bought a hamburger and a Coke together because of that very, very, very high margin that you're receiving from that Coke sale. So again, that's another way that we can look at the justification for putting complementary products together in a bundle. Okay, so this session talked a lot about different product strategies when it comes to our product array, dealing specifically with mix issues and line issues in how you create products, launch products, and how products work together.